In today's video, I'm going to be talking about my first 6 years in real estate. Because 6 years in, and I am not rich. No, in fact, I'm still struggling and trying to figure it out. So this is the messy, honest version of my first 6 years. So, hi, my name is Sabrina, and I am failing forward in real estate to build a more durable life. So, let me take you back to the beginning. So, I bought my first property in 2019. It was a cute little duplex, your classic house hack. Now, I didn't know what house hacking was at the time, but it was your standard rent out one side, live in the other side situation. Now, you might think I bought it because I ran the numbers and I knew it was a smart investment. Nope. I bought it because I can't read. Because clearly for sale and for rent mean different things. And I was actually looking for a rental. I was somewhat new to the area because I got a new job, but I went to look at this house that was for sale even though I was looking for a rental. So it wasn't renovated. One part of the floor had this like little tilt. The yard needed serious cleanup, but she was cute. And I was lucky. I had family who helped me fix some of the important things while I tried to figure out how to be a landlord for this other side because I didn't know how to do that. And so a few months after some repairs and doing some research, I found a tenant. Literally to this day, my first tenant was my absolute favorite tenant. I peaked way too early. We still keep in touch from time to time. Just fantastic first tenant. And so I got my tenant and I thought, excellent, we are in business, right? But after about 2 years, that little floor tilt started to worry me. And this was the start of my education in foundation problems. And when I say start, I mean there was a harder lesson that I would learn later, but more on that in a second. So for this first problem, this first floor kind of sinking issue, we were $20,000 in with new columns in the basement, one ruined bath mat because of muddy contractor boots, but the house finally stopped sinking. All right, so hold on. Let me back up just a second. So for context, the house was built in 1903, so literally over 100 years old, which is pretty normal in New England where I was at the time. And very old house, like literally trunks were, as the joists. So we've got full on logs are holding up this house. And they were charming and great and cute until the digging for the new columns messed up the field stones on the other side of the duplex and they started to fall in. Like you could see daylight from inside the basement. And this is where I learned my second harder lesson in foundations, and that is the foundation pour. So, if you don't know what that is, let me save you the suspense. It's where you remove your current foundation and pour in a new one. It took months of drilling and shaking and dust. And I yelled at that 70-year-old general contractor more than once. It cost me $70,000, and I'm still paying that off to this day. And you know what the wildest thing was? So that was wrapping up maybe around 2022, and I started to have the feeling, you know what? Let's buy another house. So with all of that learning and experience with my 1903 duplex. My boyfriend at the time and I were we're in a long distance relationship. So as I mentioned, I was up in New England. He was down here in North Carolina where I'd gone to grad school. And now he's really handy, like has an actual collection of tools kind of handy. And so we thought, well, why don't we get a rental down in North Carolina and we could rent it out until I had the chance to move back down from New England whenever I could move back down south. And so we came up with this brilliant plan during the winter holidays in 2023. And by April, we had bought the rental. Now, did we run numbers? No. Did I have a solid idea of rents in the area? Also, no. Did we pour our combined life savings for the 20% down payment and then pay for the repairs ongoing out of pocket from our day jobs? Yes. Did my then boyfriend work long days in his manual job only to then spend his nights and weekends fixing up our rental house? Also, yes. Was I still living 700 miles away and wasn't there to help? You bet. And mind you, this was going to be our house, so we didn't want it to be rental grade. We wanted the place to be solid, beautiful, somewhere where we would actually live. And during this process, this house became our first trip to couples therapy. The physical stress, the financial stress, the emotional stress, it was a lot. But we did get through it, and the house was absolutely gorgeous. So much, like we were so excited. My boyfriend even proposed to me, so became my fiance, in this house at the end of that renovation. So the work was done. I got the professional photos taken and listed it for rent. My agent, my buying agent, she even came by and congratulated us on how good the job turned out. And so I got it all done and I got it posted, and then crickets. 0 rental interest. Like none. And I panicked. We had poured everything into this house, and now we needed it to start paying us back. And so this was still in the post-COVID era, and YouTube was full of stories of Section 8 landlords who still got paid while others were dealing with eviction moratoriums and non-payment. So I went for it. I called the housing authority. I listed it on the affordable housing rental websites, and I finally started to get some traffic. I met who would be my tenant and her family, and they were delightful. I did the screening, they moved in. I could finally breathe. And then 6 months later, during the biannual walkthrough, the kids had turned the walls into a coloring book. The fence and outdoor storage doors somehow had flown off the hinges, and the toilet problem, let's just say it involved a toy. So, quick pro tip, something that I've learned from this experience: post your rental onto multiple platforms. So I only used apartments.com because that's what worked really well for my duplex. But people who rent single family homes tend to use platforms more like Zillow. So post across all of the platforms to boost interest so that you're not scrambling and kind of saying yes to the first person who kind of meets the criteria. You really want to be able to select from lots of options. And so since then, we've dealt with an unauthorized dog, a surprise trampoline install. I'm still dealing with that, so let's just move on to the next part of the adventure: house flipping. So with all of that experience and confidence from our rental unit, just enough information and experience to be dangerous, we went into flipping. So this was the first time that I invested in coaching. So if you want kind of my full thoughts and reflections sort of on coaching and how you can think about it, let me know and I can make a video about that. But I paid an uncomfortable amount of money for a coaching program from one of the people that you know that are on YouTube, and I got started. So following my coach's advice, I reached out to wholesalers, I made offers, did my best to negotiate, and finally found someone who was willing to kind of sort of meet me halfway. They didn't come all the way down to my number, but I was able to buy the house for $55,000 with $60,000 in estimated rehab budget. Now, another pro tip, side note. At this point, I would not buy a house where the rehab budget is more than the purchase price, especially because this ARV was still going to be well under $200,000. And so that was not value add. That was just future stress and therapy bills. Oh, and I pretty much bought it sight unseen. Now, I had an amazing, and I do mean amazing, investor-friendly agent who walked the property for me, and I felt really good about it. I was doing everything that the YouTube channels say. You build your team, you get your boots on the ground. It was, I thought, going well. So we closed, and because of schedules and coordinating, and like I said, I had my job up in New England and things, my fiance and I were able to see the house for the first time the day after we closed. And it was the worst thing we had ever stepped into. A rat-infested hoarder house with a giant tree basically growing out of the side of the foundation. And so unfortunately, my vacation was over and I had to get back to New England. And so we hired a crew to do the initial clean out, which removed most of the rats. But then my fiance at the time was stuck with the day-to-day. And he says that the smell was so bad that he couldn't even eat lunch in the front yard, outside in the front yard. And so the problems for this house did not just stop at the smell and the hoarding. We had rotten subfloors, unusable plumbing, an electrical panel that needed upgrading, no insulation in the crawl space, and that enclosed patio and that carport that we thought were going to be such great additions, completely had to demolish them because they were in such bad condition. It was a situation. But eventually I was able to come back down to help, and we got massive support from friends and family, including borrowing my mom's RV, which we parked outside, and we lived outside of our flip, and we survived it. Day by day, the house came together, and when it was done, it was absolutely beautiful. The prettiest thing on the market. And so, which is exactly the best time to get another one. So as we finished up the first flip, we were able to get the second one. And this one was only 5 minutes from this first flip. So we actually went and walked this house. No more surprise trees growing out of the foundation. The sellers were still living there and were there when we did the walkthrough, even though I still got this one from a wholesaler. But this was a solid stone house with a nice layout and a big basement. They did, however, let the dogs use the bathroom inside of the house. I don't know, people live differently, I guess. So we tried to hire a general contractor on this one, given how difficult it was to do the first one, but we couldn't get on the same page about exactly, I was like, okay, this is what I would like, and he was like, okay, this is what it would cost, and then I said, okay, well, does that mean these things? He was like, no, that's too much, and I was like, well, can I get a price? Can you just adjust the price so that we're on the same page? And eventually, he just ghosted us. And in hindsight, I certainly take full responsibility, right? You need to know exactly what it is that you want as the investor, but we were back to the DIY life. So we moved the RV to that side of town, and while we were finishing up that one, we started this one. And for the second house, we decided to add a half bath, which meant meeting my new nemesis, the permit and zoning office. was terrified to do anything for fear that they would make us rip it out or start over, or that we would get some sort of grand stop order that I had heard it happens to people sometimes. Ultimately, we failed one plumbing inspection, which was really awful, and we had to rebuild the back steps twice because the first ones did not meet code. But finally, both flips were ready, and they were both done right before the 2024 presidential election. So November 2024. So you've got a presidential election that then rolled into Thanksgiving, that then rolled into Christmas, that then rolled into the new year, and we're just sitting, waiting with both of these houses on the market. So after a lot of waiting and really, really difficult buyer negotiations, and the second house actually sold before the first one, we ended up breaking even on the rat-infested house, and we made a little bit of profit on that second stone house. It was a lot of sweat and a lot of stress for a little bit of profit, but we lived to tell the tale. And also, my husband and I got married at the end of that because apparently we just like to, pile on milestones. And so where are we today? So we actually just recently closed on another house hack, I guess back to my roots. And so we thought that this would be the dream. We already got a house that was rehabbed, it was flipped, it was already fixed up. So we thought we would just kind of move in, fix the downstairs, get it ready for renters, and then we would be able to, have the rent offset the mortgage. No, naturally within weeks we had a water leak in the bathroom. We found another water line leak down in the crawl space. We had a lot more just general water coming into the crawl space than we thought. Mind you, we went through the regular home inspection and I paid extra for a unique plumbing specialty inspection, and this still happened. Currently dealing with some electrical issues in the ceiling lights. So we're dealing with opening walls, drying out the crawl space, cutting holes into ceilings, removing vanities. Real estate will definitely keep you humble. So there you have it. I'm 6 years in and I am not driving a Lambo. I am not on the beach. And to be honest, all of it hasn't been fun. But I'm here, still in the game, still failing forward, and somehow still believing that it's worth it. So if you've had bumps in the road, let me know in the comments. This was my messy start, and everyone's real estate journey is their own. And so please, whether you've hit home runs or also had a messy start, would love to see it. Would love to see your experience in the comments. Thank you so much for watching.